In the 41st millennium, there is only war. Across a million worlds, humanity's imperium grinds forward through oceans of blood and mountains of corpses. Gods walk among mortals, demons claw at the veil of reality, and ancient machines older than memory stir in tomb worlds beneath dead suns. Power is measured in continent-shattering warships, planet-killing weapons, and the faith of trillions. In this universe of cosmic horror and infinite brutality, the impossible happened. Something arrived that defied every law, every calculation, every prophecy. Something that shouldn't exist. A man in a yellow jumpsuit and red cape who could end any fight with a single punch. The 41st millennium was about to learn that sometimes the greatest threat isn't malice or madness. It's casual, absolute, unstoppable indifference. If you crave stories of cosmic collisions where impossible heroes shake the foundations of the grimdark future, smash that subscribe button. The Emperor protects those who bear witness to the dark millennium's strangest tales. The craft world Ulthanash hung in the void like a frozen teardrop of wraithbone and sorrow. Its infinity circuit pulsed with the souls of 10 million dead, while its living inhabitants performed the intricate ballet of survival that had sustained their dying race for millennia. In the Chamber of Seeing Paths, Farseer Lathis stood before the runestones, her psychic sight piercing the skein of fate to glimpse futures yet unborn. Then every rune exploded simultaneously. Lathis screamed as impossible visions flooded her mind. A figure, bald, unadorned, impossibly simple. Punching through the webway itself as though it were wet parchment. The psychic backlash sent her sprawling, blood streaming from her nose and eyes. Around her, seers collapsed, their souls nearly torn from their bodies by the sheer wrongness of what approached. "Seal the webway!" she shrieked. "Close every—" Too late. Reality tore open in the craft world's eastern district with a sound like a thunderclap wrapped in breaking glass. Eldar civilians scattered as a figure tumbled through the rift, spinning end over end with the grace of a dropped sack of potatoes. He hit the Wraithbone street face first with an impact that should have created a crater. Instead, he simply stopped, stood up, and dusted off his yellow jumpsuit with gloved hands. "Ow," Saitama said flatly, rubbing his bald head. He looked around at the alien architecture, soaring spires of psychoactive bone, flowing curves that hurt human geometry, colors that existed in spectrums beyond normal vision. This isn't the discount market. 3 Guardian defenders materialized from cover, their shuriken catapults already tracking the intruder. The lead warrior, his helmet adorned with runes of warding, spoke in melodious Eldar that Saitama couldn't understand. When the human simply stared blankly back, the Guardian's grip tightened on his weapon. "Look, I'm lost," Saitama said, raising one hand in a gesture he hoped was universal for peaceful. "I was fighting this weird monster with portals through a punch, and then I was falling through some kind of tunnel made of screaming colors. You guys know the way back to Z City?" The Guardians exchanged glances. Their soulstones pulsed with shared confusion transmitted through the infinity circuit. This Mon Ki, this human, radiated no psychic signature, no presence in the warp whatsoever. It was as though he simply didn't exist in any supernatural sense. Yet the Farseer's screams still echoed through their neural pathways. This thing had torn through the webway like tissue paper. The lead Guardian made a decision, his finger tensed on the trigger. Thousands of monomolecular discs erupted from his catapult, each one capable of slicing through ceramite armor. The other 2 Guardians fired simultaneously, creating a storm of bladed death that should have reduced the intruder to a red mist. Saitama stood there as the shuriken storm washed over him. The monomolecular discs shattered against his skin, his jumpsuit, his cape. They broke like waves against a mountain. After 3 seconds of sustained fire, the Guardians' weapons clicked empty. "Are you guys done?" Saitama asked, looking mildly annoyed. "Because that tickled a little." The lead Guardian dropped his weapon and ran. His companions followed instantly, their sophisticated tactical minds reaching the same conclusion. Void shields don't work like that. Wraithbone armor doesn't work like that. Nothing works like that. Saitama scratched his head and started walking. The craft world's architecture bent around him in ways that should have been disorienting, but he simply followed what looked like a main path. Eldar civilians fled at his approach, some screaming prayers to forgotten gods, others simply vanishing into doorways that sealed behind them with psychic locks. After 10 minutes of wandering, Saitama found himself in a vast domed chamber. Wraithbone pillars stretched toward a ceiling that seemed to show real stars, though he was fairly certain they were still indoors. At the chamber's center stood Farseer Lathis, now surrounded by a full squad of aspect warriors, dire avengers in dark blue armor, their weapons trained on the approaching figure. "Mon Ki," Lathis said in heavily accented Gothic, her voice carrying layers of psychic command that would have brought a normal human to their knees in worship. "You have violated the sanctity of Craftworld Ulthanash. Explain yourself before we reduce you to component atoms." "Oh, you speak my language." Saitama's face brightened slightly. "Great. Like I told those other guys, I'm lost. I was in the middle of a fight, punched something really hard, and ended up falling through this weird rainbow tunnel. Can you point me toward Earth? I've got a sale at the supermarket tomorrow." The Farseer's third eye opened on her forehead, blazing with eldritch power as she attempted to read his fate threads. Her consciousness touched his presence and recoiled violently. There was nothing. No past, no future, no connection to the warp's infinite possibility. He existed as a blank spot in the tapestry of reality, a void that fate itself simply flowed around. "Impossible," she whispered. "You are no blank. Your soul is not absent. It simply doesn't interact. What manner of being are you?" "I'm Saitama. I'm a hero for fun." He said it with the casual tone of someone stating their grocery list. "Also, I'm kind of in a hurry. Those sales don't last long." One of the dire avengers, younger and more impetuous than his brothers, raised his catapult. "Farseer, this thing mocks us. Let me—" "Stand down," Lathis commanded, but she was a fraction too slow. The aspect warrior fired. A stream of shuriken projectiles crossed the distance in a microsecond. Saitama, looking slightly annoyed, raised his hand and flicked his finger. The air itself compressed into a visible shockwave. The shuriken disintegrated. The dire avenger's weapon shattered. The warrior himself flew backward 300 feet, crashing through a wraithbone pillar that cracked like a rotten tree. Only his aspect armor saved him from being reduced to paste. Saitama lowered his hand. "I said I'm in a hurry. Can someone just tell me which way to Earth, or do I need to ask someone else?" The temperature in the chamber dropped 10 degrees. Every Eldar present felt it, the absolute certainty that this being could kill them all without effort, without thought, without even remembering their names afterward. Farseer Lathis had guided her craft world through demon incursions and space Hulk collisions. She had stared into the eye of terror itself. But this bald human in a ridiculous costume terrified her more than anything in 10,000 years. "We do not know your Earth," she said carefully. "The webway connects to millions of worlds. The rift you created has already sealed. I cannot reopen it without knowing its destination coordinates." "Oh," Saitama's shoulders slumped slightly. "That's inconvenient." "However," Lathis continued, her mind racing through probabilities and survival calculations. There is a human empire, vast beyond measure. Perhaps they know of your world. I can arrange transport to their space. Saitama brightened. Really? That'd be great. Thanks. The Farseer gestured to her dire avengers, who reluctantly lowered their weapons. As she led the strange human toward the craft world's docking bays, she sent psychic messages racing through the infinity circuit. Warn all seers. Something has entered our galaxy. Something without fate, without purpose, without fear. And I believe we have just condemned the Imperium to discover it firsthand. Behind them, the cracked Wraithbone pillar continued to crumble, a monument to the casual destruction of a being who didn't even realize he'd done anything impressive. The Eldar shuttle emerged from the webway 3 days later at the edge of the Segmentum Obscurus, a region of space where Imperial authority hung by threads of faith and stubbornness. Farseer Lathis had chosen this destination carefully, far enough from major craft worlds that whatever catastrophe followed wouldn't reach her people, close enough to Imperial patrol routes that the Mon Ki would find his kind quickly. She watched Saitama through the shuttle's viewing port as he floated in the void, having insisted he didn't need a void suit. He'd been right. The vacuum of space didn't harm him. The radiation didn't touch him. He simply hung there, cape flapping in non-existent wind, looking bored. There, Lathis pointed to a distant speck of light. An Imperial patrol vessel. They will take you to their authorities. Perhaps they know of your Earth. Cool. Thanks for the ride. Saitama gave her a thumbs up, then simply kicked off the shuttle. The force of his casual push sent him rocketing toward the Imperial ship at speeds that would have liquefied a normal human. The shuttle rocked violently from the recoil, alarms screaming as stabilizers fought to compensate. Lathis whispered a prayer to dead gods and activated the webway portal. She never wanted to see that terrifying creature again. Aboard the Righteous Fury, a lunar-class cruiser of the Imperial Navy, Sensor Adept Boran stared at his auger display with growing confusion. His mechadendrites twitched as they cross-referenced data streams, each calculation returning the same impossible result. "Captain," he announced through his Vox grill, his voice flattened by augmetic processing. "Unknown contact approaching at 0.7 light speed. No engine signature, no warp presence. Mass reading, approximately 70 kilograms. Captain Helios Martin, a veteran of 40 years' service to the God Emperor, looked up from his tactical display. "Repeat that, Adept." 70 kilograms, my lord. Human-sized mass, moving at relativistic speeds under no detectable propulsion. That's impossible. Recalibrate your instruments. Already completed, my lord. 3 times. The object is slowing down, now approaching at combat speeds. It will intercept us in 40 seconds. Martin's hand went to the golden aquila hanging at his chest. In 4 decades, he'd seen Orc rock ships, Eldar phantom vessels, and once a demon engine that defied the laws of physics. But this was new. Battle stations, shields to maximum, gun crews. Load blessed ammunition. Whatever that thing is, we're not taking chances. Klaxons wailed throughout the ship. Thousands of crew members rushed to their posts. In the dorsal lance batteries, gun servitors locked fresh capacitors into place. In the torpedo bays, chapter serfs armed warheads blessed by the ship's priests. The Righteous Fury had survived the Gothic War and the Macarian Crusade. It would not fall to an unknown Xenos threat. Saitama came to a stop 50 meters from the ship's hull, floating in space with his arms crossed. Up close, the cruiser was massive. 5 kilometers of armored fury covered in weapon batteries, observation towers, and Gothic architecture that served no practical purpose. He could see tiny windows dotting the hull, and behind some of them, people moving around. He knocked on the hull. The sound, impossibly, transmitted through the vacuum and reverberated through the ship's superstructure like a cathedral bell. Inside, Martin grabbed his command throne as the entire bridge shook. "What in the Emperor's name?" "Captain." Boren's mechanical voice cracked with something approaching emotion. "The object it's humanoid. Human, even. Male. Wearing some form of yellow body glove. No helmet, no void suit. It's knocking on our hull." "Show me." The main view screen flickered to life, displaying external pict feed. Every officer on the bridge fell silent. There, floating in hard vacuum, was a bald man in a yellow jumpsuit and red cape. He was waving at the camera. "Heresy," whispered the ship's confessor, Father Grim, his bionic eye zooming in on the figure. "No human can survive the void unprotected. This is a demon. A trick of the warp. If it's a demon, why isn't it attacking?" Martin muttered. He activated the external voxcasters. "Unknown entity, identify yourself. You are in violation of Imperial space. Surrender or be destroyed." Saitama couldn't hear anything, no sound in vacuum, but he saw lights flashing on the ship's hull and figured they were trying to communicate. He pointed to his ear and shook his head, then made a "let me in" gesture. "It wants to board," Boren reported unnecessarily. "Captain, we cannot allow a Xenos entity onto this vessel," Father Grimm said, his power maul already humming with activation. "The Ordo Malleus has protocols for..." Silence. Martin studied the figure on the screen. It didn't look aggressive. It looked lost, confused, almost bored. "Adept Boren, scan it for taint. Warp presence, chaos corruption, anything." Boren's mechadendrites danced across his console. "No warp signature detected, my lord. No psychic presence. No radiation beyond standard cosmic background. No energy readings at all. According to every scan, that is simply a human. A human floating in hard vacuum." "Yes, my lord." Martin made his decision. "Open Hangar Bay 7. Have security teams standing by with hellguns. If it makes one hostile move, concentrate fire and blow the bay." He stood, straightening his dress uniform. "And someone get me an astropath. The Inquisition is going to want to know about this." The hangar bay doors opened like a cathedral's mouth, spilling atmosphere into the void in a glittering cloud of frozen vapor. Saitama flew inside as the gravity field caught him, landing on the deck with a thump that cracked the reinforced ceramite plating. "Oh, artificial gravity," he noted, pleased. "This place is pretty high-tech." 30 Imperial Guard troopers surrounded him instantly, hellguns trained on his center mass. Behind them, 2 Ogren boneheads growled, their ripper guns ready. At the bay's entrance, Captain Martin stood flanked by Father Grimm and the ship's master-at-arms. "In the name of the God Emperor of mankind, identify yourself," Martin commanded, his voice amplified through the bay's vox system. "I'm Saitama. I'm kind of lost. Do you guys know where Earth is?" The troopers exchanged confused glances. Martin stepped forward cautiously. "Earth? You mean Holy Terra, the throne world?" "I don't know about holy or throne, but yeah, probably. Just regular Earth. You know, where humans come from originally." Father Grimm's eye narrowed. "Every human knows Terra is the birth world of humanity. Every child learns this in their first catechism. You speak Gothic, yet claim ignorance of the most basic..." His voice trailed off as a terrifying possibility occurred to him. "Unless you are not from our reality at all." "Yeah, that sounds about right," Saitama agreed. "I punched through some kind of portal thing and ended up with those pointy-eared people. They said you guys might know the way home." "Pointy-eared," Martin's face went pale. "You encountered Eldar." Is that what they're called? They tried to shoot me. Didn't work, though. Tried to shoot you. The captain's hand drifted toward his bolt pistol. And it didn't work? Nope. Father Grim raised his power maul. This is clearly a Xenos trick. No human can survive void exposure or shrug off Eldar weapons. We must... Saitama was suddenly standing directly in front of the Confessor. None of the 30 trained soldiers had seen him move. One moment he'd been 10 meters away, the next he was there, staring at the power maul with mild interest. "That's a pretty cool sword hammer thing," Saitama said. "Does it light up?" Grim swung instinctively, the power maul's disruption field blazing with enough force to pulverize ceramite. Saitama caught it with one hand. The weapon stopped dead, its energy field crackling uselessly against his palm. "Oh, it vibrates. That's neat." Every Hellgun in the bay opened fire simultaneously. Laser beams, each one hot enough to punch through tank armor, converged on Saitama's center mass. The last fire reflected off his jumpsuit, his skin, his bald head. Scorch marks appeared on the bay walls where deflected beams struck. Alarms screamed, emergency containment fields activated. After 10 seconds of sustained fire, the troopers' power packs ran dry. Smoke filled the hangar. As it cleared, Saitama stood unchanged, still holding Father Grim's power maul. His jumpsuit wasn't even singed. "Look, I don't want to fight," Saitama said, releasing the weapon. "I just want to find Earth and get home. There's a sale tomorrow, and I really need to stock up on vegetables." Captain Martine's throat had gone completely dry. In 40 years of service, facing orcs and heretics and worse, he'd never been truly terrified. Until now. "Stand down," he croaked. "All units, stand down." "But Captain," the Master-at-Arms began. "I said stand down." Martine's voice cracked with barely controlled panic. He'd seen the impossible. This being, this Saitama, had just tanked concentrated Hellgun fire without flinching. He'd caught an active power maul barehanded. He'd survived hard vacuum. "You are clearly beyond our capability to restrain." "Thanks for understanding." Saitama scratched his head. "So, about Earth." "Holy Terra lies at the heart of the Imperium," Martine said carefully, as though explaining physics to an armed nuclear warhead. "It is 10,000 light-years from here, protected by defenses that would annihilate entire fleets. Only those with the highest authority can approach." 10,000 light-years. That's pretty far. Indeed, the journey takes months through the warp, which requires a warp-capable vessel and a navigator to guide us through. He stopped. The being floating in vacuum probably didn't need any of that. I will contact Segmentum Command, explain the situation. Perhaps they can arrange transport." Saitama nodded. "Okay. Is there anywhere I can wait? Maybe somewhere with food?" Martine gestured weakly to the Master-at-Arms, who looked like he'd rather face a demon prince. "Show our guest to the officer's mess. Full hospitality, whatever he requires." As Saitama followed the terrified officer out of the hangar bay, Father Grim retrieved his power maul with shaking hands. "Captain, we must alert the Inquisition. That thing is an abomination against nature itself." "I know," Martine whispered, sinking into a nearby cargo crate. "Emperor preserve us all. I think we just met something that could kill Space Marines with his bare hands. Something that doesn't even understand how impossible he is." In the silence that followed, every man in that hangar bay shared the same thought. What have we brought aboard? The message reached the Segmentum Fortress on Cypra Mundi 6 hours later, transmitted through astropathic relay chains that spanned light years. Lord Inquisitor Valen Cross of the Ordo Xenos read the encrypted report 3 times before his bionic hand crushed the data slate into fragments. Impossible, he muttered, his scarred face twisting with disbelief. Around him, his personal staff, interrogators, savants, and his bodyguard of tempestuous scions waited in tense silence. Captain Martin claims to have encountered a human who survived hard vacuum, withstood concentrated las fire, and moved faster than human perception. No armor, no augmetics, no psychic signature. A lie, my lord, suggested interrogator Hele, her hand resting on her plasma pistol. Martin has served the Emperor faithfully for 40 years. He wouldn't fabricate this. Cross stood, his augmetic leg servos whining. Which means either he's compromised by chaos corruption, or something genuinely unprecedented has entered Imperial space. Either way, the response is identical. Investigation, Hele asked. Immediate. Prepare my ship and contact the Death Watch. If this being is hostile, we'll need firepower that transcends normal military doctrine. 3 days later, the Indomitable Truth, an inquisitorial black ship, translated from the warp near the Righteous Fury. The cruiser's crew had been on edge for 72 hours, ever since their strange guest had taken up residence in the officers' mess and eaten approximately 400 kilograms of rations without explanation or apparent digestive consequences. Saitama sat at a long steel table, surrounded by empty food trays, looking profoundly bored. The ship's officers had learned to give him a wide berth, not out of malice, but because his presence felt wrong, like a blind spot in reality that eyes couldn't quite focus on. Captain Martin entered the mess, accompanied by a figure in midnight black power armor bearing the silver shoulder pad of the Death Watch. The Space Marine was enormous, over 7 feet of gene-enhanced muscle and ceramite, his bolt pistol mag-locked to his thigh and a power sword humming at his waist. Saitama glanced up from his empty tray. Oh, is this about the Earth thing? Did you find it? Not yet, Martin said, his voice carefully neutral. But the Inquisition has arrived to speak with you. They have questions. Inquisition? Is that like the police? The Space Marine spoke. His voice, like grinding stone, filtered through his helmet's vox grill. I am Brother Sergeant Acheon of the Storm Wardens, seconded to the Death Watch. You will accompany us to the Indomitable Truth for questioning. Resistance will be met with lethal force. Saitama stood, stretching. Sure, whatever, as long as it helps me get home. Acheon's combat instincts, honed through a century of warfare, screamed danger. This human moved with the casual confidence of a predator who'd never met anything capable of harming it. His transhuman senses detected no weapons, no augmetics, no power source, but the absence of threat markers somehow made him more terrifying. The shuttle ride to the black ship was conducted in absolute silence. Acheon sat across from Saitama, never removing his hand from his bolt pistol, while 2 more Death Watch Marines flanked the entrance. Each one could tear apart a squad of orcs. Each one silently assessed whether they could take this unassuming bald man in combat. None of them liked their odds. The Indomitable Truth's interrogation chamber was a masterpiece of psychological warfare. Black walls absorbed sound. Servo skulls floated in the darkness, their eye lenses recording every micro-expression. Null field generators hummed at subsonic frequencies, designed to suppress psychic abilities and induce subtle nausea in subjects. Saitama sat in the steel chair, looking around with mild interest. This place is pretty gloomy. You guys ever think about better lighting? Lord Inquisitor Cross entered through the chamber's only door, his servo skull hovering at his shoulder. Behind him came Interrogator Hele and 3 more Death Watch Marines, including Acheon. The room suddenly felt very crowded. I am Lord Inquisitor Valen Cross, ordained authority of the Emperor's Holy Inquisition. You will answer my questions truthfully and completely. deception will be met with extreme prejudice. Okay, Saitama said agreeably. What do you want to know? Cross activated a holo display showing picked captures of Saitama floating in vacuum. Explain how you survived void exposure. I just did. I mean, I can hold my breath for a really long time. Doesn't seem like a big deal. No human can survive vacuum, Cross said flatly. The decompression alone would rupture your organs. The radiation would cook you from the inside. The temperature extremes would freeze your blood in seconds. Saitama shrugged. I guess I'm pretty tough. The Inquisitor's jaw tightened. He cycled through more images, Saitama catching the power maul, standing in the Hellgun barrage, the cracked deck plates where he'd landed. Captain Martine reports you moved faster than human perception. You withstood last fire that should have vaporized you. You caught an active power weapon with your bare hand. The hammer sword thing? Yeah, that was interesting. Does your whole military use those? Answer the question. What are you? I'm Saitama. I already said that. Cross leaned forward, his bionic eye whirring as it analyzed pupil dilation, skin conductivity, heart rate. All readings came back completely normal. No stress response, no deception markers. This being was either the greatest liar he'd ever encountered, or genuinely didn't understand how abnormal he was. Are you a psyker? A sanctioned witch? A what? Do you possess psychic powers? No, I'm just strong. How did you become just strong? Saitama scratched his head, looking slightly embarrassed. I did 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and ran 10 kilometers every single day for 3 years. Also, I stopped using air conditioning. The interrogation chamber fell completely silent. Akion's hand tightened on his bolt pistol. Hele's expression cycled from confusion to anger to disbelief. Cross simply stared. You're claiming, the Inquisitor said slowly, that a basic exercise regimen gave you invulnerability and superhuman strength. Well, I also went bald. That was kind of a bummer. This is heresy, Brother Akion growled. No mortal training produces such results. The Emperor's angels undergo genetic modification, hypno-conditioning, and organ implantation over decades. Even then, they cannot survive hard vacuum. I don't know what to tell you, Saitama said. That's just what happened. Cross activated his Vox speed. Bring in the test subjects. A door opened. 2 servitors wheeled in a reinforced steel cage containing a corrupted Genestealer, its forearms twitching with Xenos malice. The creature had been captured during a cult purge on Tertius VII, kept sedated for study. Now it woke, saw fresh prey, and began shrieking. This creature, Cross explained, is a Genestealer. Its talons can cut through ceramite armor. Its reflexes operate faster than human neural impulses. If you are what you claim, merely a strong human, it will kill you in seconds. He gestured to the Death Watch Marines. Release it. Akion opened the cage remotely. The Genestealer exploded forward, a blur of chitin and claws moving at speeds that would have overwhelmed a normal human's perception. It crossed the 10 meters to Saitama in a fraction of a second, talons extended to tear through flesh and bone. Saitama looked at it with vague curiosity. As the creature's claws came within inches of his face, he casually backhanded it. The Genestealer hit the far wall with a wet crunch. Its exoskeleton shattered like glass. Purple ichor splattered across the black steel. When it slid down to the floor, it left a long smear of alien blood and wasn't moving. Was that supposed to be dangerous? Saitama asked. Every weapon in the room came up simultaneously. Bolt pistols, plasma guns, and Akion's combi bolter all trained on the bald man's head. The servo skulls backed away, recording frantically. "Heretic!" Father Grimm's voice echoed through the chamber's Vox system he'd been watching from an observation room. This being violated natural law. He killed a Genestealer with a single blow. This is chaos corruption, demonic influence. "I'm not a demon," Saitama said, looking genuinely annoyed for the first time. "I'm a hero. I fight monsters like that thing all the time. In my world, they're pretty common." "Your world?" Cross's voice was deadly calm. "Where exactly is your world?" "Earth, like I keep saying." "Holy Terra?" "I don't know. Just Earth. Where I'm from, it's the early 21st century. There's cities, supermarkets, television, and sometimes monsters show up, and I punch them. No spaceships or laser guns or whatever these are." He gestured at the bolt pistols. The Inquisitor's mind raced. Early 21st century, before the Age of Strife, before the Emperor revealed himself, or something else entirely. "Describe your Emperor." "We don't have one. There's lots of different countries with different leaders." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Every inquisitorial officer present shared the same horrified realization. This being came from a reality where the God Emperor of mankind either hadn't risen yet or didn't exist. "Brother Achian," Cross said quietly, "what's your assessment?" The Storm Warden had fought Hive Tyrants and Chaos Champions. He'd dueled Eldar Exarchs and Orc war bosses. His transhuman combat instincts were infallible, and right now, they were telling him to run. "My lord," Achian said carefully, "that Genestealer would have required sustained bolter fire to kill. He destroyed it with a casual blow. If he's hostile..." The Space Marine trailed off, unwilling to complete the thought. "I'm not hostile," Saitama insisted. "I just want to go home. Look, I get that you guys are suspicious, but I'm literally just a guy who trained really hard and got really strong. It's not magic or demons or whatever. Can we please just figure out where Earth is so I can leave?" Cross made a decision. "You claim to be a hero. Prove it." "How?" The Inquisitor pulled up a star chart. 20 light years from here is the mining world of Graxis III. 2 weeks ago, it stopped sending astropathic communications. Scout reports suggest Orc presence, significant Orc presence. If you're truly as powerful as you appear, you'll help us investigate and eliminate the threat. And then you'll help me find Earth. If you succeed, I will dedicate every resource at my disposal to locating your home dimension." Saitama considered this. On one hand, he really wanted to get home. On the other hand, these people seemed genuinely scared of whatever these orcs were. If he could help people by punching some monsters, well, that's what heroes did, right? "Okay," he agreed. "Let's go punch some orcs." In the observation chamber, Father Grimm made the sign of the Aquila and whispered prayers to the Emperor. He just watched a being kill a Genestealer with the same effort most men use to swat flies. And now the Inquisition was about to unleash that thing on an Orc warband. The Emperor protect them all if this Saitama ever decided humanity was his enemy. The Orc warband had claimed Graxis III with characteristic brutality. What had once been a productive mining colony of 40,000 souls was now a smoldering wasteland of scrap metal fortresses and crude settlements. The Greenskins had killed half the population outright, enslaved the rest, and were now strip mining the planet's adamantium deposits to fuel their war. War boss Grimgut Ironjaw surveyed his domain from atop a makeshift tower constructed from mining equipment and human corpses. He was massive even by Orc standards, 12 feet of muscle, scar tissue, and cybernetic enhancements. His power claw crackled with barely contained energy, and his Shuta had been modified so many times by mech boys that it barely resembled its original design. "Dis is proper Orky," he bellowed to his assembled mob. "We got scrap, we got teeth. And we got lots of humies to crump. Wah! 3,000 greenskins roared their approval, waving choppas, sluggas, and various improvised weapons. They'd been having the time of their lives for 2 weeks, fighting, looting, and building increasingly ridiculous war machines from the mining colony's infrastructure. Then the sky opened, and something descended on a pillar of fire. The indomitable Truth remained in low orbit, while a Thunderhawk gunship streaked toward the primary Orc settlement. Aboard, Saitama sat strapped into a passenger harness designed for space marines, his legs dangling several inches above the floor. Around him, Brother Akion and his kill team performed final weapons checks with ritualistic precision. The plan, Lord Inquisitor Cross explained through the Vox system, is straightforward. We deploy at the settlement's edge. The Death Watch will engage the Orc mob while you provide fire support. Once we've assessed your combat capabilities against live targets. Can I just ask them where Earth is? Saitama interrupted. Maybe these Orcs have heard of it. Brother Akion's helmet turned toward him. Orcs don't negotiate. They exist only to fight and conquer. They're a fungal infection on the galaxy itself, capable of overwhelming entire sectors if left unchecked. So they're like monsters. Worse, monsters can be reasoned with sometimes. Orcs live for violence. It's their biological imperative. Oh, Saitama digested this. So I can just punch them. If you can get close enough before they riddle you with... Akion stopped himself. This being had survived Hellgun fire. Orc Sluggus would be no different. Yes. You can punch them. The Thunderhawk's assault ramp dropped with a hydraulic hiss. The kill team disembarked in perfect formation, bolters raised, auspexes scanning, decades of combat experience moving as one unit. Saitama simply hopped out behind them, landing hard enough to crack the rockcrete. The Orc settlement stretched before them like a nightmare of scrap and violence. Crude fortifications made from mining vehicles, towers constructed from human bones, massive Gretchen-driven machinery belching toxic smoke. And everywhere, greenskins, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all turning toward the new arrivals with expressions of pure, joyous aggression. "Humies!" one Orc bellowed. "The Beakies came to fight!" "Wah!" The roar came from 3,000 throats simultaneously. Brother Akion opened fire. His combi bolter spat explosive rounds that turned the nearest Orcs into shredded meat. His kill team followed suit, plasma, bolter, and flamer fire creating a wall of death. Orcs died by the dozen, but more charged forward, laughing as they came. Saitama watched the Space Marines work. They were impressive, each shot perfectly placed, each movement economical and lethal. The Orcs, by contrast, were chaotic and brutish, but there were so many of them. It reminded him of the monster associations back home, just greener and louder. An Orc boy, 8 feet of muscle, wielding a massive choppa, broke through the defensive line and charged Saitama. "You look puny," it bellowed. "I'm gonna..." Saitama punched it. Not hard, just a casual jab, the kind of punch you'd throw without thinking. The Orc's head simply ceased to exist. Its body took 3 more steps before collapsing, fountaining blood. The greenskin mob paused for approximately half a second. Then they charged even harder, excited by the prospect of fighting something that could kill their mate so easily. "Interesting," Cross muttered from orbit, watching through pict feed. He killed that Orc with the same ease one would swat an insect. Interrogator Hele, are you recording this? "Yes, my lord. All sensors active." Saitama started walking toward the mob. Orcs surrounded him immediately, dozens of them, all swinging choppas, firing sluggas, trying to overwhelm through sheer numbers. It was the same tactic that had worked against Imperial Guard forces countless times. It didn't work now. Saitama moved through the mob like wind through grass. Each punch removed an orc from existence. Each kick sent bodies flying into fortifications hard enough to collapse them. He wasn't even trying. His expression remained bored, almost sleepy, as greenskin after greenskin fell before him. "Boss!" An orc knob shouted toward the scrap tower. "Dat Humi is crumpin' all de boys!" War Boss Grimgut looked down at the battlefield and saw something that shouldn't be possible. A single human, completely unarmed, walking through his warband like they were Gretchen. No armor, no weapons, just punching. And every punch killed. What the Zog? Grimgut's cybernetic eye zoomed in, trying to make sense of it. The human wasn't even big. He was tiny compared to proper orcs. But he'd just killed 20 boys in as many seconds. The war boss felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Something primal and unexpected. Genuine excitement. "Finally," he roared. "A proper fight. Boys, fall back. This one's mine." Grimgut leaped from the tower, his massive bulk cratering the ground on impact. He stood to his full 12-foot height, power claw crackling, and pointed at Saitama. "Oh, aye, Baldy. You want a scrap? Come have a go." Saitama looked up at the massive greenskin. "Are you the boss?" "I'm the biggest and the strongest. War Boss Grimgut Ironjaw, terror of the sector." "Cool. Do you know where Earth is?" The orc's cybernetic eye flickered in confusion. "Irf? Watson Erf." "Never mind." Saitama sighed. "Let's just get this over with." Grimgut charged with speed that belied his massive frame. His power claw came down in an arc that would have bisected a battle tank. Saitama sidestepped casually, and the claw buried itself 3 feet into solid rockcrete. "Use fast," Grimgut laughed, ripping his claw free and swinging again. "I like that. Makes it more fun." For 30 seconds, the war boss unleashed everything. Power claw strikes that shattered rock, shooter rounds that could penetrate armor, even a headbutt that would have killed a space marine. Nothing touched Saitama. He simply wasn't where the attacks landed. The orc mob watched in growing confusion. Their war boss was the strongest among them, elevated to leadership through countless victories. He'd killed a space marine captain in single combat. He'd torn apart a dreadnought with his bare hands. But this little bald human was making him look slow. "Stop moving," Grimgut roared in frustration. "Okay." Saitama stopped dodging. The war boss's power claw hit him square in the chest with enough force to demolish a building. The energy field discharged, the hydraulics screamed, and the impact created a shockwave that knocked nearby orcs off their feet. Saitama stood completely still. The power claw hadn't moved him an inch. Not a scratch marked his yellow jumpsuit. "Huh," Saitama said, looking down at the claw pressed against his chest. "That actually had some force behind it. You're pretty strong for a... what did they call you?" "An orc." Grimgut's jaw dropped. His cybernetic eye ran diagnostics, convinced it was malfunctioning. His power claw was operating at full capacity. He'd hit the human dead on. But nothing happened. What are you?" "I'm just a guy who's a hero for fun." Saitama looked up at the war boss. "Sorry about this." He flicked Grimgut's forehead with one finger. The war boss flew backward like he'd been hit by an artillery shell. He crashed through his scrap tower, through 3 buildings behind it, and finally came to rest a quarter-mile away in a crater of his own creation. His power claw sparked uselessly. His cybernetic eye had shattered. Several bones definitely broken. But he was alive. And he was laughing. That's the best fight I ever had." Grimgut coughed up blood, still grinning with his massive tusks. Used the strongest, Baldy. I'm not even mad. That was proper. His head fell back, unconscious but alive. The orc mob stared at their fallen war boss. Then they looked at Saitama, standing calmly in the crater where Grimgut had been. Then they looked at each other, as 3,000 orcs dropped their weapons and knelt. "New boss," one particularly smart knob declared. "Da Bald Yumi is the new war boss." "Wait, what?" Saitama said. "I'm not your boss. You crumped Grimgut. That makes you the boss. That's how it works." Aboard the indomitable truth, Lord Inquisitor Cross stared at the pict feed in absolute horror. He just... Interrogator. "Hello, please tell me I'm not seeing what I think I'm seeing." "My lord," Hale's voice was hollow. "The orcs appear to have accepted him as their new war boss. Per orc social hierarchy, defeating the current leader makes you... I know how orc hierarchy works." Cross's augmetic hand clenched hard enough to dent his command throne's armrest. "We just gave an unstoppable being command of 3,000 orcs. The Ordo Xenos will have my head. The Death Watch will declare us traitors. This is... My lord," Brother Akian's voice came through the vox from planetside. "He's refusing their allegiance. He's trying to explain he doesn't want to be their leader." On the ground, Saitama was having the most frustrating conversation of his life. "I'm not staying here," he told the assembled greenskins. "I need to find Earth and go home." "Den we'll come with you," the smart knob declared. "The boss goes on a war, we go too. That's how it works." No followers. I work alone." But you's the strongest. You gotta have boys." Saitama pinched the bridge of his nose, feeling a headache coming on. This was somehow worse than the Hero Association's bureaucracy. At least they understood the word no. Brother Akion approached carefully, his kill team maintaining a perimeter. "The orcs will follow you now, until you either die or they find someone stronger. That's their nature. You could kill them all, but more will come." Word spreads quickly among greenskins about powerful fighters. "I don't want to kill them if they're not attacking," Saitama said. "That wouldn't be heroic. Can't we just, I don't know, leave them here? If we leave 3,000 orcs alive, they'll rebuild and attack another world within months." Saitama looked at the kneeling mob of greenskins, each one looking at him with something approaching reverence. He thought about the Imperial soldier's fear, the Inquisitor's suspicion, and now this, accidentally becoming a warlord to alien mushroom monsters. "This place is weird," he muttered. "Really, really weird." Above, Lord Inquisitor Cross made a decision that would either save the segmentum or doom it. Brother Akion, new orders, convinced Saitama to maintain nominal command of that orc warband. If he can control them, we can use them. If he can't, we'll virus bomb the entire planet. My lord, that's an acceptable loss compared to the alternative. We now have evidence that this being can defeat a war boss in single combat without injury. The Ordo Xenos needs to study this. The Imperium needs to understand this. And Emperor help us all, we might need him when something worse comes." On Graxus III, Saitama sat down on a pile of rubble, surrounded by 3,000 kneeling orcs, and wondered how his search for discount vegetables had gone so catastrophically wrong. The solution to the orc problem came from an unexpected source: the orcs themselves. After 6 hours of increasingly absurd negotiations, during which Saitama repeatedly insisted he wasn't their boss, and the orcs repeatedly insisted he absolutely was, a particularly weathered orc, Mech Boy, shuffled forward. His name was Grognak, and he was missing an eye, both legs, and approximately 40% of his original body mass. What remained had been replaced with crude mechanical augmetics held together with rivets and faith in Mork, or possibly Gork. "Boss," Grognak said, his mechanical vox grill crackling, "I got an idea." I'm not your boss, Saitama said for the 100th time. Right, but if you was, hypothetical like, I got something that might help with your Earth problem. Saitama's expression shifted from exhausted to attentive. You know about Earth? Nah, but I know about space things. Grognak tapped his mechanical head with a wrench. I was looking at the Hume Cogboy's maps before we crumped them. He had lots of star charts, thousands of worlds. If your Earth is out there, it's on one of them maps, yeah? Brother Akion, who'd been monitoring from a safe distance, activated his Vox. My lord, the Orc is suggesting access to the colony's cartographium. The mining facility maintained comprehensive stellar navigation data for ore transport routes. Lord Inquisitor Cross considered this. Is the cartographium intact? Affirmative. The Orcs seem to have ignored it in favor of, well, everything they could loot or destroy for fun. Then we have an opportunity. Saitama, if you're listening, accompany the Orc to the cartographium. If your Earth exists in any Imperial records, we'll find it there. Saitama stood immediately. Finally, let's go. The cartographium was buried 3 levels beneath the mining facility's administrative center, protected by reinforced blast doors that the Orcs had simply ignored. Reading wasn't their strong suit. Grognak led the way, his mechanical legs clanking, while Saitama followed, and Brother Akion's kill team maintained cautious overwatch. Inside, the chamber was a cathedral of information. Hololithic projectors displayed 3-dimensional star maps. Databanks contained millennia of navigation records. Servitor-operated cogitators hummed with processed astronomical data covering 100,000 light-years of charted space. This is DA Place, Grognak announced proudly. Lots of shiny bits and flashy thingies. The Hume Cogboys spent all day looking at dots. Interrogator Heli arrived via shuttle, accompanied by 2 tech priests from the Indomitable Truth. The Mechanicus adepts immediately began interfacing with the cogitators, their mechadendrites plugging into data ports with reverent precision. Saitama, Heli addressed him formally, her suspicion now tempered with professional courtesy. Nobody who could punch a war boss unconscious deserved casual disrespect. Describe your Earth in detail. Any distinguishing features, stellar coordinates if you know them, technological level, political structure, anything that might narrow the search parameters. Saitama thought back to his apartment, his city, his world. It's mostly ocean, 7 continents, 1 moon. We've got space stations, but no faster than light travel yet. About 7 billion people, no alien contact that I know of. We had the Olympics recently. The tech priests exchanged binary cant, too rapid for human comprehension. One of them, Magos Vrel, turned his skull-like face toward the group. Query, does this world orbit a G-type main sequence star? Confirmation required for search parameters. I don't know what that means, Saitama admitted. Yellow sun, Akion translated. Like Holy Terra's sun. Oh, yeah, yellow sun. Regular sun. Magos Vrel's mechadendrites danced across cogitator keys. Hololithic displays flickered to life, showing billions of data points, every charted world in Imperial space, cross-referenced with Saitama's parameters. The search algorithm began filtering. 7 billion inhabited worlds reduced to 700,000 with liquid water. 700,000 reduced to 50,000 with single moon systems. 50,000 reduced to 5,000 with G-type stars. 5,000 reduced to nothing. Search complete, Vrel intoned. 0 results match provided parameters within recorded Imperial space. Conclusion: subject's homeworld does not exist within the Imperium of Man. Saitama's shoulders slumped. What? But you said there's millions of human worlds. The Imperium contains approximately 1 million inhabited worlds, Halle explained carefully. But the galaxy contains billions of stars. Most are uncharted, unexplored, or lost to old night. Your Earth could exist beyond our borders, or... She hesitated. Or what? Brother Acheon finished the thought. Or it exists in a different reality entirely. The warp touches infinite dimensions. Your arrival through that portal, the one you created by punching, suggests you're not from our universe at all. The cartographium fell silent except for the humming cogitators. Saitama processed this information with the same expression he'd worn when the Hero Association explained his hero ranking had dropped due to lack of public engagement. So I can't go home? Not through conventional navigation. Cross's voice came through the Vox system. He'd been listening from orbit, monitoring the entire exchange. However, if you arrived through a dimensional breach, theoretically another breach could return you. The Imperium has resources that might facilitate such a thing. Really? Saitama's face brightened slightly. The Ordo Malleus specializes in warp phenomena and demonic incursions. They've documented cases of dimensional instability. If anyone can open a controlled portal to your reality, it would be them. But their fortress monastery is located near Holy Terra itself, in the Sol system. So we go there. It's not that simple. Terra is 10,000 light-years away and protected by defenses that make planetary assault impossible. The journey takes months through warp travel, which is... Cross paused, choosing his words carefully. Dangerous. Ships are lost regularly. Reality doesn't function properly in the Immaterium, and given your complete lack of warp presence, we don't know how you'd react to extended exposure. But it's the only option. Unless you can punch your way back through dimensions without coordinates or targeting data, yes. Saitama considered this. Back home, he'd faced enemies that manipulated space and reality. Garau's martial arts had briefly touched cosmic forces, and he'd fought through Phoenix Man's mental dimensions. If these people said the warp was dangerous, he'd probably be fine. Okay, he decided. Let's go to Terra. Excellent, Cross said, though his tone suggested he found nothing excellent about this situation. However, there's one complication. The orcs. What do we do about 3,000 greenskins who now consider you their war boss? Oh, that's easy, Grognak interjected, having been listening to the entire conversation with surprising attentiveness. If DA Boss is going on a big trip, we come too. That's how WoW works. Absolutely not, Hele said immediately. We are not transporting orcs to the heart of the Imperium. Then we follow in our own ships. We got Daka and Rox. We'll catch up. Brother Acheon's hand went to his bolter. That's even worse. An orc fleet following an inquisitorial vessel would trigger every defense fleet between here and Terra. Perhaps, Cross mused from orbit, we could use this to our advantage. My lord. Hele's voice carried warning tones. Think strategically, Interrogator. Saitama represents unprecedented military power, but zero political authority. The High Lords of Terra won't see a hero. They'll see a potential weapon or threat to be eliminated. However, if he arrives leading an orc, Wa that he then controls, that demonstrates value. Utility. Something the Imperium can't simply execute or imprison. You want to weaponize him, Acheon said flatly. I want to ensure he survives long enough to find his way home. And in doing so, perhaps protect the Imperium from threats that conventional forces cannot handle. Cross's tone hardened. The galaxy grows darker every year. Chaos expands. The Tyrannid hive fleets multiply. The Necrons wake. We need every advantage, even if that advantage is a bald man who doesn't understand how powerful he is. Saitama had been only half listening to the political discussion, more focused on the star maps floating around him. Finally, he spoke. "If the orcs want to follow me, I can't really stop them, can I?" "Correct," Akion confirmed. "Short of exterminating them, they'll pursue you across the galaxy. That's their nature. And you said you need to deal with dangerous stuff, chaos, tyrannids, whatever those are. Constantly. Then fine, the orcs can come, but they listen to me. No attacking random people. No destroying things unless I say so. If they're going to call me boss, they follow boss rules." Every Imperial officer present shared the same thought. He has no idea what he's agreeing to. Orcs didn't follow rules. They followed strength and violence. Trying to make them behave like disciplined soldiers was like trying to teach a hurricane to be polite. But then again, this was the being who defeated war boss Grimgut with a finger flick. "I'll tell the boys," Grognak announced happily. "New rule. We only crump what the boss says to crump. Anyone who breaks the rule gets crumped by the boss." The threat of being personally crumped by Saitama would probably work, Akion realized. For once, orc psychology might actually produce something resembling military discipline. "My lord," Hele voxed to Cross, "we're really doing this? We're taking orcs to Terra. We're taking an unprecedented asset to the one place that might send him home," Cross corrected. "The orcs are unfortunate cargo, but they'll keep Imperial authorities from doing something foolish, like trying to assassinate Saitama with conventional means. And if the High Lords decide he's too dangerous regardless, then the Emperor protect us all, because I suspect conventional armies won't stop him. Best we keep him pointed at the Imperium's enemies rather than its citizens." The plan was set. The indomitable truth would transport Saitama, a Deathwatch kill team, and Emperor help them, Grognak as an orc representative. The remaining greenskins would follow in their crude ships, staying far enough back not to trigger Imperial defense protocols, but close enough to respond if summoned. It was possibly the worst plan in the history of the Inquisition. As preparations began for the long journey to Terra, Saitama stood in the cartographium, looking at the hololithic display of the galaxy. 1,000,000 worlds, trillions of humans, endless war stretching across incomprehensible distances. His own world suddenly felt very small and very far away. "I just wanted to get vegetables on sale," he muttered to nobody in particular. Behind him, Grognak was already sketching designs for a proper boss throne that would make Saitama look more impressive. It involved way too many spikes, at least 3 flamethrowers, and what appeared to be a cup holder. The journey to Terra was going to be very, very long. The warp journey should have taken 3 months. It took 5. The indomitable truth translated into the immaterium at the edge of the Graxis system, its Geller field flaring to life as reality dissolved into the screaming chaos of the warp. The ship's navigator, a withered woman named Kasara, whose third eye could perceive the Astronomican's light across impossible distances, immediately sensed something wrong. "My lord," she voxed to the bridge, her voice tight with strain. "There's an anomaly in our wake. A void, moving with us." Lord Inquisitor Cross stood at the command throne, his augmetic hand gripping the armrest. "Explain." "The warp flows around our Geller field as expected, but there's a second area of null space, separate from us. Humanoid-shaped. It's like watching a blank spot move through a painting. Everything simply avoids it." Saitama, Cross realized. His lack of warp presence is creating a localized dead zone. "More than that, my lord. The warp entities, they're fleeing from it. Demons sense him and simply retreat. I've never seen anything like this. It's as if they know he can hurt them in ways that violate their nature." Cross filed that information away for later analysis. Will it affect our journey? Potentially favorably, my lord. The usual warp predators aren't approaching, but we're being forced into slower, more circuitous routes. The Empyrean itself seems reluctant to let him pass through. In his assigned quarters, formerly an interrogation cell hastily retrofitted with a cot and basic amenities, Saitama sat cross-legged on the floor, meditating. Or trying to. The warp's presence made him uncomfortable in ways he couldn't articulate. It wasn't painful or dangerous, just wrong. Like nails on a chalkboard played at frequencies only his body could detect. Outside his door, 2 Death Watch Marines stood eternal watch. Brother Akion had assigned rotating shifts, not to contain Saitama, nothing could contain him, but to monitor his reactions to warp travel. So far, he'd shown no signs of corruption, mutation, or psychic awakening. He just seemed mildly annoyed. In the ship's observation deck, Interrogator Heli studied reports from other inquisitorial assets. Word had spread through astropathic channels about the being called Saitama. The response was mixed. The Ordo Hereticus wanted him brought before their courts for extensive examination. Any human who claimed to gain godlike power through exercise was clearly tainted by chaos. The Ordo Xenos wanted him dissected and studied. Such biological anomalies could provide insights into humanity's genetic potential. The Ordo Malleus wanted him contained or destroyed. Anything that existed outside the warp's influence was unpredictable and therefore dangerous. Only Lord Inquisitor Cross's authority and reputation kept the kill orders at bay, for now. Behind the indomitable truth, separated by 300,000 kilometers of real space and connected through unreliable warp currents, the Orc fleet followed. It was less a fleet and more a collection of scrap held together with optimism and violence. 15 crude ships, each one a flying testament to Orc engineering's triumph over physics. War boss Grimgut, recovered from his injuries and now sporting an impressive scar across his forehead where Saitama had flicked him, commanded the flagship Gork's Grin, or possibly Mork's Grin. Orcs argued about this constantly. He stood on the bridge, such as it was, watching the viewport with unusual contemplation. "Boss is off with the Humies," his second-in-command Nob Braka commented. "What if he don't come back?" "Then we wait," Grimgut said. "And if the Humies hurt him, we water all Empire to dust." "But Boss Saitama crumped you good. Don't it make you mad?" Grimgut's grin widened, showing all his tusks. "Nah, makes me respectful. I fought for years and years. Fought beakies, fought spiky boys, fought big metal skeletons. Never lost. Got boring. Den Baldy shows up and flicks me like I'm a grot." He laughed, a booming sound that shook the bridge. "That's the best thing that ever happened. Now I know there's something stronger. Gives me something to work toward." The Orc philosophy was simple. Find the strongest, follow them, and maybe learn to be stronger yourself. For once, that philosophy aligned almost perfectly with something approaching loyalty. 2 months into the journey, the indomitable truth encountered its first major threat. The distress signal came from a mining installation on the edge of the Damocles Gulf. Astropathic screams spoke of teeth and hunger, of darkness that moved with terrible purpose. The message cut off mid-transmission with sounds that shouldn't exist. Tyranids, Brother Akion identified immediately, studying the tactical display. Likely a splinter fleet. Small enough to avoid major naval engagement, but large enough to devour an undefended installation. "How many?" Cross demanded. "Unknown. Could be hundreds. Could be thousands. The swarm adapts based on available biomass." Saitama, who'd been summoned to the bridge, looked at the tactical projection with interest. Those are the Tyranids you mentioned, the ones that eat everything. Correct. They're a galactic threat, hive fleets from beyond known space, consuming all biological matter to fuel their expansion. Each organism is a living weapon, evolved through countless generations to kill efficiently. So they're monsters. On a scale that beggars comprehension, yes. And there are people at that mining place who need help. Were, cross-corrected grimly. The installation has likely been overrun. By the time we arrive, there may be nothing left to save. Saitama's expression shifted slightly. Not anger exactly, but something resolute. We should check anyway. Heroes don't assume people are dead just because it's probably true. Akion's helmet tilted in what might have been respect. My kill team can deploy with you. Tyranids are most dangerous in numbers, but if we establish a defensive perimeter, I'll go alone, Saitama said. If it's dangerous, no point risking other people. That's... Akion stopped himself. He'd watched this being kill a war boss with a finger flick and survive hard vacuum. Standard tactical doctrine didn't apply. Understood, but we'll maintain orbital support if the swarm is too large even for you. It won't be, Saitama said with absolute confidence. Not arrogance, just stating a fact. The mining installation designated Theta 77 hung in the void like a corpse, its lights dark, its vox channels silent. Saitama approached in a one-man drop pod, which was probably unnecessary given he could survive re-entry, but the Mechanicus had insisted proper form be observed. He crashed through the installation's hull like a meteor, his landing cratering the central processing deck. Emergency lights flickered on automatically, revealing a scene from nightmares. Biomass. Everywhere. The walls, the floors, the ceilings, all covered in organic matter that pulsed with alien life. Digestion pools where humans had been dissolved into nutrient slurry. Capillary towers pumping processed biomass toward the hive ships waiting outside. And throughout it all, the sound, clicking, scraping, breathing. The Tyranids knew he was here. They came from every direction. Hormagaunts skittering on blade limbs, termagants with flesh guns already firing. Larger organisms, warriors with bone zords and lash whips, moving with terrible intelligence. Behind them, something bigger stirred in the shadows. Saitama looked at the swarm approaching him from all sides. Easily 500 organisms, maybe more. He thought about the mining workers who died here, dissolved to feed alien hunger. He thought about the Imperium's endless war against creatures like these. Then he started walking. A Hormagaunt leaped at his face, scything talons extended. He swatted it away, and it exploded into chunks of chitin and ichor. A Termagant's bioweapon fired beetle rounds that bounced off his bald head. He flicked the creature, and it disintegrated. The swarm pressed closer, trying to overwhelm through numbers. It was their most effective tactic, bury the enemy in endless bodies until even space marines ran out of ammunition and stamina. Saitama didn't have ammunition, and he didn't get tired. He moved through the installation like a natural disaster. Each punch removed clusters of Tyranids from existence. Each kick sent organisms flying into walls hard enough to crater metal. He wasn't even using his serious punch. These were just consecutive normal punches, the kind of attacks he'd use on weak monsters back home. The Tyranid warriors recognized the threat. Their synapse connection allowed them to coordinate, to adapt, to try different tactics. They sent the swarm in waves while warriors flanked, attempting to strike from blind spots. Saitama just turned around and punched them too. On the indomitable truth, the command crew watched through long-range augers and pict feeds in stunned silence. One man, one unaugmented human, was systematically exterminating a Tyranid force that would have required a full Space Marine company to defeat. Emperor's blood, Magos Vrel whispered in binary. He's achieving a kill rate of 47 organisms per minute, sustained, without fatigue indicators. A shadow moved in the installation's primary chamber. Something massive. A Carnifex, a living battering ram covered in chitinous armor, armed with scything talons that could tear through tanks. It had consumed enough biomass to reach full maturity, standing 4 stories tall and weighing approximately 9 tons. It charged Saitama with the inevitability of a landslide. Saitama stopped walking, looked up at the charging bio-titan, sighed. Okay, this one might need more effort. He drew his fist back and threw a proper punch. Not a serious punch that would probably destroy the entire installation. Just a regular punch with actual intent behind it. The Carnifex's armored head simply ceased to exist. The shockwave from the punch traveled through its body, liquefying organs and shattering chitin from the inside. The massive corpse crashed forward, dead before it hit the ground, its momentum carrying it past Saitama to crumple against the far wall. The remaining Tyranids, perhaps 200 organisms, felt something they rarely experienced, the hive mind's equivalent of fear. The synapse creatures transmitted data upward, threat level maximum, adaptation impossible, retreat recommended. They tried to flee. Saitama was faster. 15 minutes later, the installation was silent. Saitama stood in the central chamber, surrounded by approximately 700 dead Tyranids, his yellow jumpsuit somehow still pristine, despite being covered in alien blood moments ago. He'd shaken most of it off. "Is anyone alive in here?" he called out, hoping against hope. Silence. He searched the installation thoroughly, checking every compartment, every sealed chamber, every possible hiding spot. Nothing. The Tyranids had been thorough. Every worker, every colonist, every soul who'd called this place home was gone. Saitama stood in what had been the installation's mess hall, now a biomass processing node, and felt the familiar emptiness. He'd arrived too late. Again, just like countless times on Earth when he'd shown up to find the monster had already killed people. Being strong enough to defeat any enemy didn't mean you could save everyone. Saitama, Cross's voice came through the Vox speed they'd insisted he wear. The hive ship in orbit is retreating. You've killed enough of its organisms that it's deemed this sector too costly. You've successfully repelled a Tyranid incursion single-handedly. The people are still dead, Saitama said quietly. Yes, they are. But because of you, the swarm won't reach the next populated world. You've saved potentially millions of lives by stopping them here. Saitama knew this was true. It should have felt like victory. But standing in the charnel house of the installation, it just felt like being too late. "Come back to the ship," Cross said, his voice unusually gentle. "We're 3 weeks from Terra. Once we arrive, we'll find your way home. I promise." Saitama took one last look at the installation, a monument to failure despite victory, and launched himself back into space. Behind him, the Tyranid hive ship retreated into the void, carrying genetic data about the creature that had devastated their vanguard swarm. The hive mind would analyze, adapt, and remember. Somewhere in the galaxy, Tyranid bioforms were already being designed specifically to counter Saitama. They wouldn't work, but the hive mind didn't know that yet. The indomitable truth emerged from the warp at the edge of the Sol system 3 weeks later, and Saitama finally understood what Holy Terra meant to these people. The defenses were absurd, battle stations the size of cities, orbital fortresses bristling with weapons that could crack planets, fleet elements from a dozen Space Marine chapters, endless patrol routes monitored by sensors that could detect a single ship from light years away, And at the center of it all, a brown and gray world that had once been beautiful, now choked by hive cities and cathedrals that scraped the sky. "That's Earth?" Saitama asked, staring at the view screen. "That is Holy Terra," Lord Inquisitor Cross corrected. "Birth world of humanity, seat of the God Emperor's throne, the most defended location in the galaxy. It looks sad." Akion's helmet turned toward him. "Sad. All those buildings crushed together, no green anywhere. My Earth has parks and oceans and stuff. This just looks like one big city." Nobody replied. What could they say? Terra was sad, a dying world kept alive through faith and stubbornness, its beauty sacrificed 10,000 years ago to feed humanity's endless war machine. The Vox channels exploded with demands for identification. Cross spent 2 hours arguing with Navy officials, Arbeits commanders, and increasingly high-ranking Inquisitors about why he'd brought an Orc fleet to the Sol system. The explanations were not going well. Finally, a new voice cut through the comm traffic. Cold. Ancient. Absolute. "This is Inquisitor Lord Torquemada Coteas of the Ordo Malleus. Stand down, all vessels. Lord Inquisitor Cross, you will dock at Titan and present your asset for examination. You have 6 hours to comply. Non-compliance will result in immediate termination." The channel went dead. "Well," Cross said into the silence, "that went better than expected. At least he didn't order us destroyed immediately." Titan. The moon of Saturn, hidden in the warp, home to the Grey Knights, the Imperium's ultimate weapon against demonic incursion. If anywhere could open a dimensional portal home, it would be here. The facility was a fortress monastery carved from adamantium and faith. Saitama, Cross, and Brother Akion were escorted through hallways lined with wards and protective runes that made even the Death Watch Marine uncomfortable. Everywhere, gray-armored space marines watched with cold assessment. These were the Emperor's demon hunters. Each one a psychic warrior trained to fight entities that violated reality itself. Inquisitor Lord Coteas waited in a chamber that seemed to exist in more dimensions than 3. He was ancient, his face a roadmap of scars, his armor covered in purity seals and holy scripture. A demon hammer rested against his throne, and his eyes blazed with psychic power that could scour minds to ash. Those eyes studied Saitama for a long, silent moment. "Remarkable," Coteas finally said. "I see nothing. No warp presence, no psychic footprint, no soul weight. It's as if you simply don't exist in any supernatural sense. Yet clearly you do." He leaned forward. "Cross tells me you seek passage home, to a dimension where I am told you gained impossible power through mundane exercise." "Yeah, that's right," Saitama confirmed. "Do you know why I believe this story, despite how absurd it sounds?" "No. Because I've interrogated 10,000 liars, cultists, heretics, demons wearing human skin. They all try to deceive, to manipulate, to hide their nature." Coteas's expression softened fractionally. "You have no guile, no agenda. You genuinely just want to go home and buy vegetables on sale. That level of sincere mundanity is impossible to fake. So you'll help me?" "Perhaps. The Grey Knights have studied warp phenomena for millennia. We've sealed demon gates, collapsed pocket dimensions, and banished entities back to the immaterium. Opening a controlled portal to a specific parallel reality is..." He paused. "Difficult, but theoretically possible." Saitama's expression brightened for the first time in weeks. "Really? It will require significant preparation. Rituals, psychic triangulation, possibly sacrifice of rare materials, and there's no guarantee of success. You may end up somewhere else entirely, or nowhere at all. I'll take that chance." Koteas nodded slowly. I thought you might. But first, I must ask, what will you do if we succeed? Return to your mundane life and forget this galaxy's suffering? Saitama considered the question. He thought about Captain Martine's terrified crew, the mining installation's dead workers, the Imperium's endless war against horrors that would break most people's minds. He thought about his own world, where heroes fought monsters and mostly everyone survived, where hope still existed. I'm not from here, he said finally. This isn't my fight, but if I could help before I leave, I would. Even knowing you can't save everyone. Heroes don't save everyone. We just save who we can, when we can. Saitama met the ancient Inquisitor's gaze. Being strong doesn't make you responsible for everything. It just means you should help where you're able. Koteas smiled, a rare expression on his scarred face. You're wasted on your peaceful dimension, Saitama. The Imperium could use someone with your power and your perspective. We've grown so accustomed to endless sacrifice that we've forgotten what simple heroism looks like. When can we start the portal thing? 3 days. We need to align the ritual with specific warp currents and gather the necessary materials. Koteas stood, his ancient armor whirring. Until then, you're free to explore Titan. I suspect the Grey Knights will want to spar with you. They've never encountered anyone genuinely immune to corruption. As Saitama left with Acheon, Cross remained behind. Will it work? Cross asked quietly. Can you really send him home? Honestly, I don't know. The ritual is sound, but dimensional navigation is imprecise. Koteas looked at the demon hammer resting against his throne. But I know this, that being killed 700 Tyranids alone, he made a war boss kneel. He survived the warp without a Geller field. If he stays in our galaxy, something terrible and wonderful will happen. Best we send him home before the High Lords decide to weaponize him or the Chaos Gods take notice. You think Chaos would try to corrupt him? I think they'd fail, which would terrify them, and terrified gods do unpredictable things. 3 days later, in a chamber carved with 10,000 years of protective wards, 100 Grey Knights formed a psychic circle around a dimensional gate that blazed with impossible light. Grandmaster Voldus, the chapter's greatest psychic warrior, stood at the ritual's center, his mind bridging the gap between realities. Saitama stood before the gate, which showed nothing but swirling colors and screaming void. We've locked onto a reality matching your description, Voldus explained, sweat beading on his face despite his transhuman endurance. Early 21st century Earth, 1 moon, no faster than light travel, 7 billion humans. The coordinates are stable, but the window will only last 30 seconds. That's plenty of time, Saitama said. He turned to the assembled crowd, Cross, Acheon, Helle, even Grognak, who'd been allowed planetside under extremely heavy guard. Thanks for helping me, and good luck with all the... everything. Before you go, Koteas said, know this. If you ever find your way back, willingly or otherwise, the Imperium will remember you. Not as a threat, as something rare and precious. A hero who fought because it was right, not because duty demanded it. Saitama nodded, then turned to the gate. Behind him, transmitted from orbit, Warboss Grimgit's voice crackled through Vox. "Oh, Baldy, if you ever come back, we'll have a proper rematch. I'm training hard. Next time I won't go down from just a flick." Saitama smiled slightly, his first genuine smile since arriving in this nightmare galaxy. "Sure, next time I'll use my whole hand." He stepped through the gate. The dimensional breach collapsed immediately, the psychic backlash sending several Grey Knights to their knees. When the light faded, the chamber was empty except for the smell of ozone and the lingering sense that something significant had just departed. "Did it work?" Cross asked. The ritual completed successfully, Voldus confirmed, his voice hoarse. Whether he arrived at his destination, that is in the Emperor's hands now. Across the galaxy, an orc fleet received orders to disperse. Without their boss, they had no purpose. Grimgut returned to his Wa, now armed with a new goal. Get strong enough to challenge the bald human if he ever came back. It would keep him occupied for decades, probably centuries. The Imperium could live with that. In the Ordo Xenos archives, a file was created and immediately sealed at the highest classification. Subject Saitama, undesignated dimension, threat level Omega null. Recommendation: avoid engagement. Recommend collaboration if possible. Do not antagonize under any circumstances. And somewhere in Z City, in a small apartment on the 3rd floor, Saitama materialized in his living room with a flash of impossible light. He looked around at his familiar furniture, his manga collection, his discount coupons still sitting on the table. Huh, he said to his empty apartment. Made it back. He checked the calendar. Same day he'd left. The discount sale was still happening. Saitama grabbed his shopping bag and headed out, already forgetting the names of the ships and the faces of the people he'd met. Not because they didn't matter, but because that was done now. Finished. Over. He had vegetables to buy. And maybe if he was lucky, he'd find a monster on the way that could provide a decent fight. Somewhere in the warp, entities of pure malice felt a disturbance, a blank spot that had briefly existed in reality, immune to their touch. They cataloged it, filed it away, and resolved to never, ever attempt contact with that particular dimensional frequency again. The door to Saitama's apartment closed behind him. The 41st millennium continued its endless war. And for the briefest moment in its dark, grimdark existence, it had been touched by something it desperately needed. A hero who was just strong enough, and kind enough, and bored enough to help.